Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo saranto sucheroye alahari sanmyao sanputoshe. Wu shang shen shen wei miao fa, bai qian wan jue nan zao yu. Wo jin jian wen de shou chi, yuan jie ru lai zhen shi yi. Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in billions of eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Venerable Master, Dharma friends, 师父上人，各位师兄大家 My name is Heng Shi. Today is Sunday, March 28th, full moon last night, here in the Gold Coast Dharma realm, Queensland, Australia. It is Saturday, March 27th, back in California. And today we're going to be looking into the Flower Garland Sutra's 10 stages. And I'm looking forward to it. I also have a song that I promised last week and didn't deliver. So we've got that queued up and ready to go for later on in the program. Okay. How should we begin? Let's begin by invoking the spiritual presence of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of Flower Garland Assembly. We're going to come back to page 84 when we're done with that. Here we are. Okay. Even a little bigger. There we go. That's just about right. Okay, we're going to be chanting the Chinese request for the sages to draw near and the Dharma protectors. Here we go. And the sneeze descended off. I had to hold that sneeze to the last word. Boy, oh boy. What can I say? Gesundheit, that's what you can say. All right. Page 84. Found it. Here we are. So today we are in the verses of the 10 Stages chapter. This is the Dashabhumi chapter of the Flower Garland Sutra, which is its instructions on how to be a bodhisattva. If you're doing it the traditional, standard, never fail, can't miss, bona fide, sure to get there, 100% proper and successful bodhisattva path. This is how. This is the textbook. It tells you how to do it. And we're in the verses part, which scholars will tell you is the oldest layer. If you look at a text that way, you know, it's timeless text. It's minimum 2,500 years old. So how do you date it? How do you think about it? Well, many different theories, and we weren't there. So any theory pretty much depends on the arguments you make around it. No single theory is more right than any other. But the standard theory from among scholars, this is different from the traditional explanation, says what? Says that the Flower Garland Sutra was verses first, and then came the filling out, the fleshing out of the text, the prose. Why? Verses are easier to remember. And as we will recall, what's fascinating to my mind is the Buddha did not speak the Flower Garland Sutra or any sutra for scholars. He didn't. This is medicine. He wasn't interested in getting published. He wasn't interested in becoming famous or an author of a famous sutra. So what did he say? He said, don't write them down. Don't write the sutras down. They're supposed to circulate my mouth to your ears, your mouth to someone else's ears. It's medicine. It's designed to help us return to well-being, to fullness, wholeness, ultimately wisdom and liberation. That's it. So for years and years and years, the sutras were oral tradition, 口述, right? 口述经书, 经典, transmitted by mouth. And fascinating, right? Because you see the thrust of the Dharma is for living beings, that's us, to wake up. So the Buddha meant it. So he didn't write it down. Compare that with what? With other scripture traditions where who owns the text? Priests. The priest caste owns the text. And if you want to know what it says, you have to go to them. And they may be the only people who can read in your community. This is true for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Who had education? That middle class, the professional clergy, right? In Buddhism, it was not so. The Sangha, many of the Sangha were also illiterate, right? They learned by ear. So it doesn't matter if you can read or not. If you can hear it and remember it and put it into practice, you got it. That's 100% of the sutra. Okay, so you all understand what I'm saying. This is, we've got this incredible 2,500-year-old book. Yeah, it's a book, but only because it's big and it's nice to hold the pages together with a binding. That's what makes a book, right? We have a computer display. But these teachings, the words, the principles behind the words, and the practices that put the principles into our lives, these don't have a time. And they don't have a textual tradition, except they do. So scholars say Verses came first because why? Easier to memorize. So that brings us to today. We are going to chant the verses with a contemporary Western melody that I totally made up out of empty space, based loosely on Roman Catholic chant tones. Father Cyprian Concilio, the prior of New Camaldoli, passed those on, and I learned them imperfectly, so I kind of adapted it. The Roman Catholic tradition, of course, chants what? They chant the Psalms 8 times a day. They're in church chanting the Psalms. And so they need those verses. The Psalms are songs. They were never fleshed out into prose. Buddhist Sutras have both songs and the long lines, Changhang, Chongsong, right? The Chongsong are the repetitive verses. So that's where we are right now, the verses. Let's give it a melody. Let's give it a whirl. Ready? I'll give you a line and you give it back. Here we go. San shi zhu fo xian gong yang. San shi zhu fo xian gong yang. Yi che guo du xi yan jing. Yi che guo du xian yan jing. Yao zhi zhu fa che ping dang. Yao zhi zhu fa che ping dang. Wei li zhong sheng fa da xin. Wei li zhong sheng fa da xin. Something like that. He makes offerings to Buddhas in 3 periods of time. He makes offerings to Buddhas in 3 periods of time, establishing each land, making it immaculate, establishing each land, making it immaculate, comprehending how dharmas share an impartial unity, comprehending how dharmas share an impartial unity. To aid sentient beings, he brings forth a great resolve. To aid sentient beings, he brings forth a great resolve. All right. Now, somebody's going to go, oh, you ruined it. Somebody else goes, wow, I never heard it that way. That's neat. We're innovating here, taking it back to Chang Song, to how the sutra describes what the Bodhisattva is doing when he teaches here. When I was researching how to make this work, I went to my dear friend Paul Andrews. Paul is the artistic director of Slavyanka, the Russian chorus. This is a group in San Francisco who they love Russian choral music. Dee da da dee da, ya da 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 dee dum, da 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 dee da da dee da da, right? Russian music. So they take it to a sublime level. And Paul is, when he stands in front of people ready to sing, he is the full package. He brings people up, perfect. So I said, Paul, tell me what should I be aware of as we're trying to put English language, Buddhist Sutra verses into a singable form? And he said, oh, well, how does it go? And I went, I said, first of all, it goes, San shi zhu fo xian gong yang, yi che guo du xi yan jing, liao zhi zhu fa jie ping dang wei li zhong shang fa da xin. He said, that's really hard because there's so many words. And then he said, what about the English? And I said, he makes offerings to Buddhas in 3 periods of time. He said, no, stop there. He said, you have to understand, when Russians do their sacred music and they're chanting the equivalent of this, he says, they will hold 1 syllable for minutes, like, oh, dee, oh, oh, No, that won't work, Paul. We got too many syllables. You know, I know. So this is a project. We're in progress with our chant tones project. All right. What does our Bodhisattva do? What did we learn so far? We learned that with still and quiet minds in harmonious accord, unbiased, free from obstructions, just like space, no defilement, no turbidity, abiding in the Tao, and the Tao moves like water downhill, we now can listen to these sublime practices. Vajra Treasury says, you ready? You want to hear about the 10 stages? You want to know how to be a Bodhisattva? I'm your speaker. I'm ready. I got my text ready. I've been appointed by the Buddha. I've been blessed by the Buddha's light. I'm ready. Okay, what does a Bodhisattva in training need to know? This is not yet a Bodhisattva. This is somebody who has, in that process of Chu Fa Puti Xin, making that very first Bodhi Resolve. That is a key turning point. That is the sine qua non of the Bodhisattva path. From that Puti Xin, that Bodhi Resolve, the Bodhicitta, comes every good thing. That's what you need if you're going to start out. So first verse talks about getting ready. The Bodhisattva cultivates goodness. He investigates, she investigates how to be a better person. And that is the ethical plowing of the nature, getting rid of bad habits and selfishness and greed and anger, which are not goodness, right? Then look at the next one. Makes offerings to boundlessly many Buddhas. We talked last week about how you can make an offering if you don't have a lot of money. Suppose you're a student. Suppose the COVID pandemic has hit you really hard and you're going from meal to meal. Does that mean you can't offer to boundlessly many Buddhas? No, that's a misunderstanding. It is the case. The best kind of offering, according to our sutra, is the gift of Dharma. So what is the gift of Dharma? It means changing yourself and getting into harmony with the Tao, with the Dharma. Another way to say it is doing what you're told. 依教奉行, they say, offering your behavior as a gift to the Buddha. You see, that's what they like best. Okay, further, offerings to voice hearers, Pratyeka Buddhas, being kind, being generous, being gentle. Those are perfect offerings, right? This Bodhisattva brings forth a great resolve to aid sentient beings. Okay, there it is. Fa Puti Xin. There's the Bodhi Resolve. Okay. Last week, we read this part. He holds the precepts. He's gentle and patient. He has shame, remorse, blessings, wisdom in his heart. He's got this ability to look at his behavior and go, ooh, boy, do I wish I could do that again. If I had another chance, I would not repeat that mistake. I hope they forgive me, right? This replete with shame, remorse, blessings, and wisdom line. Notice how this is different from guilt. This is not guilt. If we talk about guilt, what's this religious version of guilt? Not illegal. You're guilty, says the judge. Bang. You know, not that. But a sense of having an offense that is somehow irreconcilable, never repentable, cannot be forgiven. What would that be? That would be original sin, for example. When I mention original sin to an Asian audience who, by and large, are innocent of any knowledge of Christianity or Judaism, they go, what? How could you, what? You, because of something that happened to a couple, Adam and Eve, like 2,000 years ago, you are burdened with the results of their mistake or disobedience, and you'll never wash it. That doesn't, that's cause and effect. Does that work? You know, so there's a lot of what, you know, why give kids that story and burden them with that sense of guilt? They can't do anything about it except accepting Jesus and his gift of sacred blood, washing clean your sins. So that story has an out, but you have to buy the whole package. You have to accept the cosmology if you want to get the causality. In order to get to the cosmology, in order to get the whole system to work for you and start to supporting you instead of burdening you with guilt, you have to get the causality. You have to accept these stories. Buddhism has a very different way of approaching. Essentially, it is cause and effect. 自作自受. What you do, you yourself are responsible for. Think of a gardener, right? Plant beans, chances are beans are going to come out. Plant tomatoes, you're going to get big ripe tomatoes on your vine, right? You won't plant beans and get tomatoes. So that you don't need to hear a special story for that to make sense. Okay, so here I am bowing in a earlier decade of my life as a monk, bowing every day for hours, 8 hours. And as I bowed, it took advantage of the washing of having the head and the heart on the same level, and what that does to your circulation and your chi and your muscles. When you're down in a bow, right, like that, your muscles relax, the big muscles, and blood is circulating in the head and the heart at the same level. Taking advantage of that opportunity to review my behavior. In the first, I left home at 24, did the pilgrimage, started when I was 27 in the pilgrimage. So reflecting on my first 27 years of life, and I had a book, I had a journal that Master Hua encouraged me to carry, and Marty as well. And the things that came to mind as I bowed, I would write down. Heng Shi's worst hits, right? Not my best hits, but my most shameful. Why is that not guilt? It's I knew better and I went ahead and did it myself. 明知故犯, that's shame. It's like I didn't live up to my own standards, and I'm ashamed of that. There's still agency, right? There's still power in there for me to go and say, I can do it better next time, right? I'm ashamed of that, and I can do it better. And oh my goodness, the things that I wrote down, I look back on them, I have a whole list of shameful moments, my hit parade of most selfish moments. My goodness. Yeah. And I think, yeah, they sound petty. I'm sure, what does the sutra say? Our very same sutra, Guanyin Jing Avatamsaka, says there's a level of our nature that is accessible to us. It's one of the basic structures. You could call it a archetype, right? And it's called 忏悔业障, repenting of karmic errors and changing, right? Reforming, forming again, making it again. 忏悔业障. And how does it go in the sutra? It says, the Bodhisattva contemplates if the things that I have done in my life based on greed, anger, and stupidity from beginningless time until this very day, done with my body, my mouth, and my mind, if they had shape and form, if they suddenly, manifested like this phone device, boom, if they just took form like that suddenly in front of me, one person's shameful events would fill up space. How much the more everybody, right? So it's like, oh my goodness. And here again, it's Samantabhadra saying the way things are. So yeah. The good part about this whole process is what? When I would bow and these things would come to mind And I would remember, yeah, I really did that. I really did those things. How shameful. If I could bring them to consciousness and say, not going to do it again. I've learned, I want to not be so selfish. There was a sense of something resolving, right? There was a sense of closure. And while there might, if it was killing or stealing or sexual misconduct, etc., then there's karmic retribution. But if it was just selfishness, if it was greed, then there's a sense that you actually can get in and clean it up. So when you're done with that, touching the shame and feeling remorse, wanting to change it, it's an amazing cleansing experience. And it's painful and hard to get down into the trenches with your own bullshit, you know, your own stuff. But man, oh man, the feeling of relief and lightness when you're done, nothing like it. Where was this carried out to an amazing degree? Master Hua grew up in Manchuria, Dongbei, northeast China. And there was a group there called the Dao De Hui, the Society for the Celebration and the Elevating of Virtue. And one of the founding lights of the Dao De Hui was a gentleman named Goodman Wang, Wang Shanren, Wang Feng-Yi was his name, Wang Shanren. And he took this principle and he would walk around and people would come to him. He was an elder gentleman. They would come to him and say, oh, I can't eat. I can't sleep. I got something stuck here and I feel terrible. Can you help me? And he was not a medical doctor, but he would say things like this. Here's a sample, an example. He would say, let me take a look. Oh, said, why did you steal the boots? I didn't steal any. What are you talking about? Steal boots. I feel sick. I need help. He said, why did you steal the boots? Well, I didn't steal any boots. What are you talking about? The boots that you're stuck right there. You can't swallow them down and you can't spit them up. I needed the boots and she had 2 pairs. How do you feel? Awful. Well, maybe you should give her the boots back and say you're sorry. Okay. Give the boots back. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done it. All the symptoms go away, right? And Goodman Wang had this ability to, it was called Dao Bu Shi, getting people to admit the mistakes they'd made. And a surprising number of miraculous, quote, miracle cures happened simply because people were able to spit out and confess and admit the mistakes that they had made in the village, in the family, with their sister, with their parents, you know. And so the Dao De Hui, the Virtue Society, grew with this kind of energy because this is not, it's not modern, it's not medical science, right? This is not nuclear medicine or nanobots working. This is the human conscience, which if anything has a longer technological lifespan than anything Western medicine invents. So when we were, after 1987, an elder laywoman woman named Man Yiping, Elder Madam Man, came with the group from China to do the water, land, air. And Man Yiping was one of the champion lecturers of the Dao De Hui. And this is a very simple group in that what did they encourage? They encouraged people discovering virtue in their lives. And one way they rewarded that was to have lecture competitions, public speaking competitions, where people would chen dao, right? They would exhort others to be good. Man Yiping was a champion. She had gone from local to provincial think she went national in terms of being able to tell. And she had a million stories about things like boots, stealing boots, resulting in, having them stuck here and you couldn't sleep and you couldn't eat. So someday, if somebody gets some energy, there's a book about Wang Shanren, Wang Feng-Yi Lu, I think, the story of Master Wang that needs translating. So yeah, wonderful stories. So our Bodhisattva is replete with shame, remorse, blessings, and wisdom. And he seeks the Buddha's wisdom. She cultivates vast knowledge. And in order to achieve the 10 powers, Fa Da Puti Xin brings forth a great resolve. Says, I want to go all the way. I want to really be a bodhisattva, a real bodhisattva. Okay? All right. That is preparatory. Today we started out with, he makes offerings to Buddhas in the 3 periods of time, establishing each land, making it immaculate, comprehending how dharmas share an impartial unity, and to aid sentient beings, again, brings forth a great resolve. So this is the 3rd stanza of preparation. The Bodhisattva has not yet set foot on the 10 stages. Okay, but is getting ready, is plowing the ground, is busting up the garden. Big chunks become little chunks become nice, freeable tilth, right? That's the language of gardeners. And he adds amendments, potassium, calcium, and it's nitrogen if needed. And the soil is ready to plant any seed. In this case, it's the Bodhi seed, the seed of awakening. So he makes offerings to Buddhas. He establishes each land, making it immaculate. How does that go? It says, Ichie Guodu Xi and Jing. That could be confusing Buddhist jargon, but we said last week, when you transfer merit. This is a major bodhisattva practice. It's number 10 of Samantabhadra's archetypes, of which number 4 was repenting and renewing and changing. So number 10 is Pujie Huixiang, is transferring everywhere, always. So it says if the bodhisattva has a single good root, right? A good root, one wholesome quality, you can transfer it. And the bodhisattva does exactly that. As much goodness as he or she has cultivated, that's how much he gives away. And the way, there's a super wonderful chapter in the Avatamsaka. It's the one prior to the 10 stages, which is called the 10 Transferences, sometimes called the 10 Dedications, 十迴向品. And there are 10 divisions in this chapter. It's quite a long chapter, full of bodhisattvas' transference wishes. And it is so inspiring because every situation they meet, they walk along, I want to do good here. I want to avoid harm. I want to help. I want to rescue. And they do things like that, then they transfer. So they become kind of a merit mill, right? A merit factory. And the more they do it, the more they can do it. And when you get deeper into the 10 transferences, man, the vows that these bodhisattvas make are sublime, they're precise. It's not well, I hope everybody is happy, maybe I'll become Buddhist. And that's a fine vow. But into the 10 transferences chapter, they are pinpointing, they're laser focused. They're the transference vows that they make so that living beings can grow, So what do I do? We have 6 cockatoos coming to see us every day now. And they have beak and feather disease, pitocin beak and feather disease, parrot beak and feather. And they're not doing well, right? So every day I see them, I transfer merit, say, could you please set your sights on your next rebirth and go help Amitabha in the Pure Land, be a good cockatoo and sing the Dharma for it, And Are they hearing it? I don't know. They're, the female has no feathers on her head except 3 sulfur crest mini feathers that she still sticks up. And her eye, because she has no feathers, her eyes are really big. And she looks at me and she doesn't fly away now when I walk by. She's learned to trust me. So it's, yeah. So you transfer as situations arise. And I, transfer to all birds. May they quickly gain longevity, peace, liberation. And may their songs delight the hearts of living beings, right? So the Bodhisattva transfers for a Buddha land that he or she wants to move into in the future. They're making that Buddha land now. Okay, so what a crazy idea. In the future, when my transference becomes established, through the power of my mind and the giving that I do of Dharma, I'm going to make a place where you fill in the blank. Where it's tempting to talk about politics, but I won't. A place where everybody has all they need. And greed is unknown. Why should certain individuals accumulate when 65% of the folks below the line can't make ends meet? That's not a good system, is it? That world is inequitable, right? Comprehending how dharmas share an impartial unity. So, 了知诸法皆平等, right? 了知诸法皆平等. What could that mean? It's like, well, just pin it right to what people need. What people need. Does the earth provide enough for everyone and no greed for anyone? Of course. But who does it that way? Make a world where greed doesn't poison the mind. Why not? Why not? Why have we allowed companies now in the US where the upper echelon of executives make a salary 400 times larger than the entry-level employee? Because they're better people? Not they're kinder, more wisdom? Not necessarily. It just seems inequitable. It is not an impartial unity. It's out of balance and it can't sustain. So, yeah, so this is kind of a radical view of the distribution of wealth, of material. And I don't want to defile it by calling it socialism. If you had to put an ism on it, you could just call it kindness, right? So that everyone's needs are met. Greed is not our friend. So the idea that whoever dies with the biggest salary is the winner, right? With the most offshore bank accounts, not at all, right? The idea that greed helps us, it doesn't, it poisons us. So, yeah. Anyway, the Bodhisattva sees through the external appearances of dharmas and goes to their heart, so they're all the same. What are dharmas? What's the impartial unity? Dharmas don't last. They pass on. Dharmas have no self. You can't pin an identity on it that is always, always true. Furthermore, dharmas, when you analyze them, you can't get them. They vanish. Just like steam coming out of a teacup, right? It rises and it's gone. All dharmas are the same. Even the ones that seem more solid than others, no, they're all the same at their heart. They are ku, kong, wu chang, wu wo, right? They're unsatisfying, empty at heart, no identity to pin down, and fast moving, transient. True, right? Just that contemplation alone is enough to fill your Saturday night, your Sunday afternoon just look around, see what lasts, ultimately what lasts. Right? So to aid sentient beings at this point, he brings forth a great resolve, but now it's based on practice. At this point, the Bodhisattva has got some practice under his belt, and he's ready to move in to the first stage. All right. Talk, 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 talk. We've begun a lecture series on Guanyin Bodhisattva's Fumanpin, Universal Door Chapter of the Lotus Sutra, on Friday afternoons in California, early Saturday mornings here in Australia, 5:30 in the morning. Maybe Jerry or the volunteers who are kindly translating and broadcasting this lecture could type in to the chat boxes, the respective chat boxes on Zoom or YouTube, how to get to that lecture. It's fun. It's an hour long, and we're going to talk all about Namo Guan Shi Yin Bodhisattva, Namo Guan Shi Yin Bodhisattva, right? So just let people know that's our next lecture series. Okay, now what's next? What's next is, there it is, first stage. Ready? I'll give you a line, you give it back. 诸于处地生实心，诸于处地生实心，用力中恶常欢喜。用力中恶常欢喜，愿力广修诸善法，愿力广修诸善法，以悲悯故如后为，以悲悯故如后为。Here we go. Abiding in the first stage, he makes a resolve. Abiding in the first stage, he makes a resolve. Beyond any evil doing, he always feels happy. Beyond any evil doing, he always feels happy. He makes vows to cultivate wholesome methods. He makes vows to cultivate wholesome methods. Filled with compassion, he masters all the successive stages. Filled with compassion, he masters all the successive stages. It just drops there at the last phrase. Okay, first stage, Bodhisattva. Oh boy, this is it. This is the first measurable level on the 10 stages. And he makes a resolve. Faxin, that's the big difference. The turning point is, do you set your mind and say, yes, I don't care whether girls in this country are not supposed to be scientists. I don't care whether I was raised to know that I was the second daughter and therefore not going to get to the top because my jie was the one who was going to get to the top, or if I'm the second RD, Lao R, and second in child, and therefore, had second class. I took the hand-me-downs. My older got all the good stuff. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how society told us these stories about our lack of value, or told us we were super important. We were the son in the family and everything came to us. The daughters didn't matter at all. Whatever story society told us. At this point, the Bodhisattva goes, that's all this deep. But below that, there is something that I have discovered through my Buddhist practice, which is more true, which is a deeper story, one that I came with because I came with a Buddha nature. And if I don't look in, if I don't hear the Dharma, if I don't meet the Sangha or a good friend, it doesn't exist, right? It's always there, but I don't know about it. If I did meet a monk or nun, meet a good friend, hear a sutra, hear a Dharma talk, I look in and guess what? It's been there all along. My Buddha nature is ready to be opened up. How do we think of it? Think of it like your garden plot. We call it the Xindi, the mind ground, right? And once you start poking around in the mind ground and taking a big stick, breaking up the soil, taking a shovel or a pitchfork and pick, taking a rototiller, whatever you take in order to open up that piece of ground, what you discover is, man, this can grow anything. This is powerful. My family told me that I was only La'ar and didn't have what it took, or my education, I wasn't great at reading, I was dyslexic or something. And so I've always been told that I was needing. I wasn't the whole story. I wanted something to, just trying to get by, feeling good enough. And I chased everything. I chased alcohol. I chased money. I chased, visible signs of wealth. None of them hit the spot. None of them satisfied my yearning to feel complete, to feel worthy of love and affection and care. But you know what? I didn't stop looking. I looked deeper and inside. That's the key. I looked inside and I discovered, my goodness, there's something there that is bright and ancient and it's all mine, but I can't sell it. It's mine without the self. It's mine without me, right? It's mine simply by arriving in a body at this time. And when I hear the Dharma, when I cultivate it, there's a sense of, number one, I'm home where I belong. Number two, I have all I need. I can't add anything. Number three, sometimes when I just sit very quietly and with the goodness of the first couple stages of preparation, when I listen to the teachings of that first stage, I realize that I'm not alone. Everybody has the same potential. So I resolve, this is what I want to do. I don't want to do other stuff. You can gather external signs of wealth, cars, houses, bank accounts and stuff, but rarely do those on their own hit that deeper spot. There's always a sense of not there, right? Not at. But when I cultivate my nature, it's like I'm happy. I feel full and complete. And as I listen, I realize there are wholesome methods. There are 84,000 Dharma practices that will turn this nature, turn this plot of ground, my garden, into something magnificent, into something that makes everybody happy, because look what comes out of my garden. I get these bonsais. I get these incredible potted plants that just, They just grow, and everybody look, wow, that's so neat. You know, they're happy making because they're beautiful and they're natural. And all you had to do was get in there, and the word is cultivate, 修行. You know, put this here, put that there. And I'm discovering all kinds of Dharma treasures in my nature. Hallelujah. Bodhisattva, right? Filled with compassion, he masters the successive stages. What does that mean? He realizes everybody's the same, completely the same. We are pingdang in our potential to cultivate and grow and nurture this nature and turn my life into something splendid, something beautiful, a blessing to every part of my life that I touch. My family, my relationships, my workplace, my school, my team, myself, right? So yeah, this is how the Bodhisattva makes that resolve and says, this is worth doing. The Buddhas are right? Okay. So let's see here. We're okay, good. 10 stages. It is an encyclopedia of the Bodhisattva path. It is the basics, the ABCs of cultivation of the Bodhisattva path. What I thought would be interesting would be to take a step back and give people who were here at the beginning of the 10 stages verses, right? We're repeating where we've been. Look at all these amazing, you'll see the Buddhas here. Buddha, 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 and they're all going infinitely far. This is a friend of mine named Yao Dajun, who lives in Hangzhou, who put this together years ago. That's the flower treasury world system. Huazang Shijie. Fo Fo Hu Zhao. Guang Guang Hu Zhao. All right, so let's take a look here. We did all this. Okay. Here's Master Hua. Need to make this a little smaller. There we go. Yeah, there we are. Okay. Sutras. The Buddha spoke them 49 years, 300 times. They were given as what? Antidotes, medicine, as a solution to people's real world problems. They were given in everyday 俗语, probably not 俗语, but 普通话. They were given in 普通话, not 文言文, you know. Why? As soon as you put teachings in special language, only people who are literate can read them. They become the possessions of the literate elite. Most people they don't have time to get off the plow. They're busy growing food to feed their families. Who has time to read, right? Only scholars. In India, it was the Brahmins, you know. That was their job, was to keep the teachings alive. But nobody else had time. So the Buddha's 49 years, 300 gatherings of teachings were passed on 口述, the fa, right? Oral tradition. And furthermore, they were lists of practices. So in Buddhism, we have so many lists. We got we got the single vehicle, we have the two truths, we have the three refuges, we have the four noble truths, we have the five roots, the five powers, we got the six paramitas, we got the seven bodhi shares, right? We have the eightfold path, we have the 9 stages of the decaying corpse, and we have the 10 you know. many. There are even books full of the lists of dharmas. Why? Because within the Sangha, within the real community of practitioners, the sequences of practice were passed on. So, Jie Ding Hui, Shila, Samadhi, Prajna, which is purity, then concentration, focus, and then wisdom, right? They come in order, Ru, Fa, according to the Dharma. Where did that come from? It came from the Buddha. The Buddha was exploring his mind. He was the what? He was the great yogi, right? Who left the palace. The Buddha split. He left comfort, you know, he left a life of ease, affluence, and went out into the forest, into the bush. No guarantee of anything. And he courageously did. And what happened is he dug in. We were using that idea of the Shindi, the mind ground garden. From his garden came 84,000 methods. First period of his teaching, Avatamsaka. Second period, the agamas. Third period, the expanding teaching. The prajna, wisdom period, and the lotus nirvana. 5 periods, 58教, right? 华严时, 阿含时, 放光时, 般若时, 法华涅槃时. We are in the first one now, the Avatamsaka period. All the things the Buddha taught have been gathered into 3 baskets, Sanzang, 12部一切经典, sutras, words the Buddha spoke, shastras, commentary by the disciples who follow the Buddha, and then the rules for the community, how to keep the Sangha together. There were, if you look at everything the Buddha taught, there are said to be 12部. Prose, we finished. Verses, we're there now. That's where we are. Predictions, 受记. Interjections, 古籍. Expansions, 方广. That would be like Earth-Store Sutra, Medicine Buddha Sutra. Past lives, 本事. Those are the stories we love to hear, the Jataka tales. 本生, past lives of disciples. 无问自说, this is Amitabha Sutra, for example, right? Yin Yuan, the Buddha's teaching on how things happened, why so-and-so came back and became the #1 disciple in spiritual powers, Madhyayana. Oh, it's because his mother, etc., etc. Wei Cheng You, miraculous stuff. Pi Yu, analogies, and then Yun Yi. 12 kinds of sutras. Funny. Okay, why am I doing this? It's because we're at the beginning of the 10 stages now. Some people say the older layer, the verses. And this is a chance for us to look at what led up to it. This is not the end of the sutra. The end of the sutra is the entering the Dharma realm, Ganda Vyuha, the Rufa Jepin. That's chapter 39. We're at chapter 27. Okay, so there's more to come. But the 10 stages chapter is a unit. It's from start to finish, the Bodhisattva path. So I thought it might be helpful to look at the whole thing to see where this came from. Okay, now, we know this because Master Hua had a different approach. Our teacher was a reformer, and a reformer implies a critic. He was critical of the Chinese Jiaozong teaching tradition. I knew a monk in Taiwan, a good friend, who before he left home in his 40s, but for a couple decades in Taiwan, he would attend every single Fahui. He would drive around the island. He'd go from Kaohsiung to Tainan, and from Tainan to Taichung, and from Taichung to Taipei, and from Taipei to Hualien, from Hualien to Taidong. and Hangchun, wherever there was a Fa Hui, he would go and look very critically. He would practice everything. He did all the various chan, the repentances. He would listen to sutras, Tingjing, and he said, and he would do chan, meditation and all. He said, of all the various kinds of Dharma happening in Taiwan, he said, the one I can't abide is lectures, sutra lectures. He said, somehow the Jiaozong got to be the possession of pedants, of people who somehow they managed to not fall asleep, but everybody listening fell asleep. They were awful, he said. I would be asleep in the first 5 minutes, and I'm sincere. He said, I just hated it until I met your teacher. He said, until I met Master Xuanhua. He said, now I sit in the front row and I take notes. Your teacher's version of the sutras is the life of the Dharma. This is the Zhengfa and how it will jiu zhu. This is the right Dharma and how it's going to survive, because your teacher's approach keeps the mind open. He challenges you to think about it. You can't go to sleep when Shifu lectures the sutras, because you'll miss something that will help you understand who you are and what you're about, right? So he said, and he went on, he said, you know what they say in Taiwan? He said, 不要讲经太危险，讲经啊，你讲错一句会下地狱，谁敢讲? Right? Say, don't explain sutras. If you lecture one word wrong, you'll fall into the hells. Who's going to dare do that? Right? And this monk friend said, that's such an obvious excuse for not taking the time to challenge the tradition that got so larded over, layered over with boring details. He said, when you in the traditional way in Taiwan, if you want to Chanting, before you get to the first word of the sutra, you have to go through half an hour of ceremonies. They have to Qingfa, and then they have to Changzan, they have to praise the sutra. Then they have to purify their bodies, mouths, and minds. Then they have to recite for the many mistakes. It takes half an hour to get to the word, to word one, and nobody listens. He said, only Shifu's version of sutra lectures will I come and listen, and I will go out of my way to attend. This is long before the internet, where you could listen to sutras online. But it was like, we didn't know, because all we had was Shifu. He was the first one to Chanting, explain sutras for us. We thought everybody was that one. So what else do they say? He said, no, you don't understand. People say, sutras are so full of Sanskrit. They're just so, who can understand that? That's just all philosophy. It's not relevant to contemporary life. Don't even bother opening them. Ting badong, kam badong. You won't understand them. You won't be able to read them, right? Well, is that the experience of what we saw today? Bodhisattva making a resolve to save living beings, right? What else? Look at this one. This is really, he said, yeah, boy. He said, people say you can't even get to the sutras. Your wisdom isn't enough. You have to go to the commentaries. Only the Tang Dynasty monks, great masters, understood the sutras. So if you try to explain it without a commentary, you'll be lost. That's really too much pride, So in fact, what we discovered was there are monks in the Tiantai tradition or the Shenshou tradition in China who do what they are famous for: reciting commentaries. If you go to listen to their sutra lectures, they sit up on the seat, they close their eyes, and they start reciting a commentary made in the Ming Dynasty about the Buddha's words. You never get to the sutra, right? So somebody likes it, it must be good. I've never heard that, but I just tend to think it would be kind of dry, especially when the monks who do this, they have their special tune. we talk about setting the sutra to a melody, right? There's a Chanting, kind of a rong, it's kind of a style. And you go, 佛法这个东西呢，太伟大，好听是好听，不是为了好听不好听，是为了救人。你听不懂吗？They do this opera, and I think when I heard it, I've heard that, I haven't heard the memorizing the commentary, but when I first heard it, I thought they do this knowing that it's so boring, so they modulate their voice to keep people awake. If somebody is talking at you like this, it's hard to, it's hard to not, you go, what was that? I heard something. So, oh my goodness. So what did Shifu do? Shifu touched the commentaries, opened them up. Because why? This is ancient wisdom. There were indeed incredibly wise, enlightened masters. One is Master Chengguan, Master Qingliang Guoshi, Chengguan Fashi, who was in the Tang Dynasty, who was said to be Huayan Pusa, Avatamsaka Bodhisattva. And his commentaries, if you have the language to access them, they are spot on from the nature, right? So Shifu would consult the commentaries by day, but then at night, set them to one side and said, let's listen to the Buddha's voice. You have enough wisdom to understand what the Buddha is saying. Moreover, you need it. You need the Buddha's wisdom found in the sutras to get through the day. You should look at a sutra like a mirror. You see your true face. Your 本来面目, your original fundamental identity is there beyond all of the makeup and the expressions that we get to deal with the stress of the day, right? It's just your innocent 天真无邪, your original true face is visible in the sutras, how you can be at your best. Furthermore, he said, if you want to be a better person, if you want to be a bodhisattva, here's the map. This is how to do it. These are instructions. So we need to hear the Buddha's voice. Let the Buddha's voice be heard. Well, that's fine, but what if the Buddha says, 一是佛在是为果, 七数即故独远. He doesn't say, thus I have heard at one time the Buddha dwelt. He doesn't speak English. Well, then it's our job to translate so people can pick it up, right? So Shifu said, these sutras are accessible manuals for wisdom. They are necessary to our lives. They are relevant to the times. He went on to say, if you can master the principles of the Avatamsaka Sutra, for example, Guanyin, he said, there is not a single bit of worldly knowledge that you can't understand and put in order. Talking unequal distribution of wealth, talking about pandemics and an appropriate response, talking about misinformation, disinformation coming to us in the media, right? Talking about humane relationship to technology. All of these, every day, front page crises in our lives can be understood and penetrated if we understand the principles of the Avatamsaka, Guanyin, he said. How do you establish a relationship with the text? Read it, get your fingerprints on it, recite it aloud. Many people only recite it, but you can read it and recite it. Memorize it and recite it. Why not? Put it in there. I did. I took a chapter called the 10 Practices, and I got to practice 7. I didn't get to the 10, much less the verses. And pieces of it float to my mind at the oddest times to explain something I haven't understood. Reprint the sutra, distribute the sutra. Shifu in Hong Kong took up collections. He encouraged people to take some of the strength to reprint the Da Boro Jing, Mahaprajna Paramita Sutra. And you can find copies of the sutra that says, Du Lun Zheng Yi, right? Master Shenhua, Master Du Lun, donated it. Bow to the sutra. This is how I started. 1 bow per word, right? Slow, but it slows it down properly. We mostly are multitasking. We're listening to a podcast while we're doing the dishes, and to bow to the sutra is really a whole different experience. 1 word at a time. It goes in deep. Some people copy the sutra out in blood, not recommended. There's a method for it. It's not a game, but you can copy it out with your keyboard. Type, 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 right? I have seen 血血经书, blood copied sutras. And just to give an example, this requires you to be able to use a maobi, a writing brush. You're never going to run human blood through a fountain pen, right? So it's in Chinese. And 2, blood clots and coagulates. So you're always trying to dilute it. You have to write in a hurry before it just coagulates. So you're gonna what? Let's see, maybe I'll cut my tongue and put blood into a baby bottle and put it in the fridge, right? So now you've got blood in the fridge. You got to bring it out, thaw it, and it's like, it's a real thing. What if you get this, a long sutra, you get halfway through and you get anemic, and the doctor says, if you extract more blood, you may die. That didn't occur to me. So you got half an Avatamsaka written in blood? Not the way. So copy it out with your word processor. Put it into Word, put it into Nicest Writer, right? Put it into text edit. Decorate the sutra. Make a beautiful case for it. Put it in a high place. Make a case out of plexiglass that keeps the dust off the pages, Make it beautiful so that when people see it, they go, wow, what's that? And then translate it. Translate the sutra. Yeah. Translate it for your kids. Translate it from, scholars English down to English kids can understand. These are what? These are ways to establish a relationship with a text so that bit by bit, it becomes your map for your steps along the road to Bodhi. Here's somebody establishing a relationship with a text, carrying it in a backpack and bowing to it. Okay. All right. So that's kind of a little bit, that's not even half through. We'll do more of this next week, but it was the idea of taking a bigger focus, going from 50 millimeters to 24 millimeters out, wide angle look at the sutra, and we'll do a little bit more of that, and then we'll come right back to second and third stage next week. Now, I promised that I was going to share a song with you, and grateful to Brian Conroy for giving us this song. It's fun to sing. I have a hunch that people are going to go out of this lecture humming this. It's one of those. It's hummable, right? He says, when I was young, my mama said to me, son, daughter, when you grow up, what do you want to be? She said, choose carefully and remember what I taught you. I said, when I grow up, I want to be a bodhisattva. When I grow up, I want to be a bodhisattva. When I grow up, I want to be a bodhisattva. While living beings can evolve, I'm going to make the Bodhi Resolve. When I grow up, I want to be a bodhisattva. Now, some folks want a one-way ticket to nirvana, to live in joy and peace, but I don't want to. There's only one job meant for me, to follow the path of Bodhi. When I grow up, I want to be a bodhisattva. I want to rescue living beings to share the joy that it brings. When I grow up, I want to be a bodhisattva. When you grow up, you can be a bodhisattva. When you grow up, you can be a bodhisattva. If you want to make something of yourself, all you got to do is cultivate no self. When you grow up, you can be a bodhisattva. All right? When I was young, my mama said to me, son, when you grow up, what do you want to be? She said, choose carefully, remember what I taught you. When I grow up, I said, I want to be a bodhisattva. When I grow up, I want to be a bodhisattva. When I grow up, I want to be a bodhisattva. When living beings can evolve, I'm gonna make the Bodhi Resolve. When I grow up, I wanna be a bodhisattva. Some folks want a one-way ticket to nirvana, to live in joy and peace, but I don't wanna. There's only one job meant for me, to follow the path of Bodhi. When I grow up, I want to be a bodhisattva. When I grow up, I want to be a bodhisattva. When I grow up, I want to be a bodhisattva. I want to rescue living beings just to share the joy that it brings. When I grow up, I want to be a bodhisattva. When you grow up, you can be a bodhisattva. When you grow up, you can be a bodhisattva. If you want to make something of yourself, you gotta cultivate no self. When you grow up, you can be a bodhisattva. When I grow up, I want to be a bodhisattva. When I grow up, I want to be a bodhisattva. When living beings can evolve, I'm gonna make the Bodhi Resolve. When I grow up, I want to be a bodhisattva. Why not? Thank you, Brian, for that lovely song. Okay, now I wanted to encourage everybody. Now, if you're listening from Europe, we've been reading about variant strains of the coronavirus that are plaguing countries like Germany, who, made a valiant first effort to get everybody vaccinated and responded, but now the circumstances are such that they have to shut down and quarantine and go indoors to stay alive. America is now feeling good for the first time in a year and according to many public health experts, are prematurely loosening their grip on the methodologies that saved them, right? They're taking off their masks, they're coming out and doing spring break in Daytona Beach. And this could, in America, could definitely put us right back into lockdown. Australia is another story, but Melbourne was the single city with the most strict lockdown, I think, in the Commonwealth. So anyway, one way that I have found to get through the quarantine and the stress and the fear and the sadness of this phenomenon of a global pandemic is to go to coronavirus.org. Right there. This, maybe our volunteers, Jerry, some could type in coronavirus.org. What is karuna? Karuna is a Sanskrit word that means compassion. And it sounds like coronavirus, but it's coronavirus, the virus of compassion. You get inspired and you inspire members of your family. They get inspired and inspire others in turn. It's like a virus, but it's compassion virus. And what this is, they're volunteers from servicespace.org who combed the news and found the best good news stories. We aim to amplify the voice of our collective compassion by featuring news articles of everyday people choosing love over fear. We feel that these acts will far outlive the virus. And if enough of us presence it in our consciousness, it just might architect a new future, using presence and architect as a verb, right? So that's coronavirus. And what you do is you go out to their websites, free of course, and you get these amazing, inspiring stories. They have thousands now, and they just started, a number of months ago. So I wanted to share with everybody one of these most uncommon, amazing stories today. And it's a story about a horse. Here is the horse. The story comes from Calais, France, which is directly across from England, up in Normandy, up there, Calais, C-A-L-A-I-S. It's the closest that France gets to England in the continent. There is a horse. His name is Dr. Plow, who is comforting cancer patients in Calais. And this is I believe this is the Guardian, who made a wonderful story. At the Palliative Care Center, Plow and his trainer, Hassan Bouchakour, arrive at the adult wards after visiting the children at Calais Hospital. You're seeing it correct. That's an elevator in the hospital, and that's a horse and his trainer. Plow and his owner once competed at dressage events, riding for beauty and, training of the horse. Now they spend their time doing rounds in a French hospital, staying with sick people until the end. Okay. This is a woman dying of metastatic cancer. She's hugging her 8-year-old son, and the horse is giving comfort to both. And you go, I've never seen that before, right? And what is happening? Hold on. In the Palliative Care Center at Calais in northern France, Marion has metastatic cancer, cuddles her 7-year-old son, Ethan, as Plow nuzzles them both. With Plow, we try to recreate life at the end of life in order to fight and create an energy to accompany families and caregivers, says his trainer, Mr. Bouchakour. Plow and Bouchakour work with Les Sabots du Cœur, the boots of the heart, an organization devoted to therapy, and with scientists who are studying this horse's ability to reduce patients' anxiety and comfort people in pain. The horse picks out the patients. His trainer takes him into the hospital, and the horse goes down the hall and puts his foot out at the door that he wants to go into. At the hospital, Peo tells his trainer which room he wants to enter next by stopping or raising his leg. Peo is 15. He is able to detect when humans have cancers and tumors. He stayed 2 hours there, watching over a dying woman. I accompany him, but I let him do what he wants. He's the one who decides, says Bushakur. What really pushed scientists to take an interest in him and open the health establishment doors was the seeming ability to greatly reduce the patient's dosage of hard drugs and allow a more peaceful departure. Here is, dressage horses are the most physically beautiful horses. They're perfect in every way. And they're the ones who, stride and pick up their hooves. Look at him. This is a magnificent horse. But he's got this, there you are. That's the horse, right? He's perfect. Look at him. Hassan Bushakur prepares Peo for a new day at Calais Hospital. Peo's nickname given by the medical team is Dr. Peo. For a long time, the pair were known for taking part in equestrian shows, but Peo was constantly looking for human contact. After shows, he would pick out people in the crowd, approach them, and choose to stay next to them. Bushakur began to suspect he was choosing people who were weakened morally, physically, or psychologically. After 4 years of investigation, veterinary specialists believe his brain functions in a unique way. There he is at the bedside of a patient he has chosen. In Calais Hospital, Marion pats Peo while the medical team help her with the pain relief from metastatic cancer. Peo and Bushakur are her allies, she says. They come to see her almost every day. Hassan and Peo are part of the team. They're not only good for the patients, but for us too, say the nurses. When it's hard, we are happy to know they're here, says Anna Sophie, a nurse at the care center. Outside in the car park, it's the end of the working day for Hassan and Dr. Peo. Since 2016, they've supported 1,000 people until their last breath in the various services in which we operate. Peo is my other half. He's my life partner. He's everything to me. Isaac, 9, is proud to show off his new friend Peo to his mother, who's just coming out of surgery. Isaac has associated the hospital with Peo. Today, if he is happy to come to the hospital to see his mother, it's thanks to the horse. Peo licks the hands of 64-year-old Roger, who's just returned for the day to the palliative care for blood transfusion. Roger's happy to see his favorite doctor again. Tonight, he's going to sleep well because he saw Peo. As soon as he sees him, he sleeps like a baby, says his wife. In the parking lot of Calais Hospital, Peo and Bushakur accompany Roger to the ambulance that will take him home after his treatment. Specialists are still trying to find out more about Peo's apparently instinctive ability to comfort those who are sick. You don't see this every day. Peo guards the door of a patient while Bushakur talks to the medical team. Hassan and Peo don't only provide comfort to patients, but to us too. In tough situations, we're happy to see them around, said Natalie, a nurse at the palliative care center. Bushakur is careful with hygiene. Peo is washed and disinfected before and after hospital visits. It takes 2 hours to get the horse ready. When I clean him with disinfectant wipes, it's to protect him. Luckily, he likes it. Peo has learned to indicate when he needs to go outside by moving his body from right to left. If he has to go out and relieve nature, he tells his trainer. This caption was amended on March 15th to remove a quote which incorrectly indicated no diseases pass from horses to humans. Right there in the hallway of the hospital. The legs of Peo, Bushakur, and Robert, the patient they're visiting. I am to some extent this horse's collateral damage. I didn't ask for this. It took me a while to accept it. It put an end to my successful career as a sportsman and a showman. It was very complicated to no longer be the master and to be forced to admit that when Peo detects someone is sick, I am no longer in control. When he decides, I can't hold him back. It's a need. It's visceral. It is in him. He needs to go and cling to the specific person he has chosen. Check this one out. Peo stands guard at the door to Robert's room. Scientists and doctors are still puzzled by some of the horse's behavior, such as here, he adopts a menacing pose to bar anyone from entering the room. What is the horse seeing that we don't see? Peo is happy to see his old friend Daniel, a former equestrian who has terminal cancer. At home, as soon as we speak to Dad about Peo, he cries. He has stars in his eyes, says his son Gabriel. Daniel was a former horse rider. And Daniel died in January at the request of the family. Bushakur and Peo accompanied his coffin at the funeral. Here's one more, two more. Peo and Hassan say that last goodbye to Daniel. Bushakur and Peo enjoy time off at the beach after a hard day at the hospital. In the past, people died at home. Today, it's so hard because people are often dying in isolation. We see death as a drama. It's a unique experience to look after a person who is facing death, to stay with them and tell them, don't worry, you can go in peace. You won't be forgotten. Here we are. That's the story of Dr. Peo, the horse. So you wonder about the Bodhisattva path and that kind of resolve to rescue living beings where they are in a language they can understand. Pretty amazing. Okay, I'd like to ask the monks at Berkeley Monastery if they have anything to announce.
Yes, Dharma Master. Tomorrow morning we have the Great Compassion Mantra Dedication of Merit starting at 6:30 a.m. And then I think we have our regular lectures. We had another event. Oh yeah, Dharma Master Lai will be speaking on Sunday evening tomorrow at 7:30 p.m.
Okay.
Getting the Guanyin session. I believe the CDB is starting the Guanyin session tomorrow, so people would like to join. I'm not sure where the link is. Probably at cdbusa.org. But
okay. So people can join the Guanyin session online?
Yes, I believe so.
Sam, do you see DR doing anything like that? Is the Guanyin session? Oh, the 3,000 Buddhas repent. Is that going to be online? So can they find it on the website? Okay. Jinchuan, is there anything more?
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay.
So we have the Great Compassion Dedication of Merit, the lecture by Dharma Master Hung Lai on 7:30 p.m. I can put the link in the chat box here.
Okay.
If you would like and you don't have it, you can maybe put it on our website. people.
Okay, where will I find it, Sam? Okay, we'll update it. Here is, if people, the Buddha Hall here at Gold Coast Dharma Realm is going to bow the 3,000 Buddhas repentance. So if you, it's upcoming. So if you can go to gcdr.org.au, you'll find it once we get that up. And that's starting when, Sam? Coming up Friday. Good Friday. All righty. Here we go. Okay.
Dharma Master, it will be streamed live at CDB Live. There's a Dharma Realm, there's a YouTube channel called CDB Live, and Dharma Master Hung Lai's talk will be streamed there.
Okay, CTDB Live on YouTube, YouTube channel.
Yeah.
All right.
Put it in the chat box.
Thank you for that. Let's transfer the merit. We'll do it with Medicine Buddha's mantra. You can with your transference, make a Pure Land for everybody to go to, where there are no COVID tests, no need for them. Here we go. We'll do it 3 times. Om Namo Bhagavate Vaidurya Prabharajaya Tathāgataya Arahate Samyak Sambuddhaya Tadyata Vaisajin Samgate Swaha Bhagavate Vaisajya Vaidurya Prabharajaya Tathāgataya Arahate Samyak Sambuddhaya Tadyata That's another one you can walk out to. That mantra really walks well. Right? Keep pace with your steps and try. Okay, we'll bow 3 times to the Buddhas. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Okay, we had 160 visitors today on YouTube. How are we doing in China? 65. Excellent. Okay, see you all next week, friends. Mami Tofo. Bye-bye.